All right. Hello and welcome to the first annual Logic Knot podcast. Um, I'm Eli Rosenthal. I am the essentially founder of the Logic Knot with, I guess, the co-founder of the Logic Knot, Kazi Baker.
Hi, my name is Kazi Baker. I'm from San Diego, California. Me and Eli actually met in college and decided to start this fledgling website. We've been working on it for 2 years with no viewers. Also, the GOAT, the god of Grixis Play, and Corey Burkhart can at me in the comments.
But we're expanding, hence the podcast, which we've been wanting to do for a while. We've got lots of ideas, lots of things we want to talk about, and so we feel like now's a good time. Basically, this one is mostly about the Magic Player League, or Magic Pro League, all the players, what it's doing, how Magic Esports is going, basically what's relevant in Magic right now.
Yeah, so this week we've had some pretty major news come out with a couple of players leaving the Magic Pro League. Previously, we had another player leave for, and we're not going to call him out by name. We're not going to discuss that kind of thing on this podcast, really. But these two new players, one is Jerry Thompson, who has left for moral reasons. He has a lot of issues with the way that the Magic Pro League is currently being run. And the second player is Yuya Watanabe, who was caught cheating, for less of better phrasing, at the second Mythic Championship in the modern format. They've both been replaced
Already.
already.
That begs the question: Is does Wizards have like a wait list, of people that are like, oh, somebody left, somebody's kicked out, boom, the top of the wait list gets in. Who knows?
Yeah, nobody knows, and that's one of the things we have to talk about today. It's quite a mess right now. And I think the first thing we're going to have to do is go over what Jerry T is having an issue with as a professional. And later in the podcast, we're going to talk about the issues that myself, Eli, and maybe even some of the spikier player base and even the player base at large have with the current system as it stands today.
One of the first things that Gary T talked about was the contract negotiations. He claims that Wizards try to just like force contracts on people and was like, no, just sign it. Don't even listen to it.
Yeah, so I'm not somebody who's signed a lot of contracts in my life, but it feels kind of odd to me that Wizards of the Coast basically went to their players, made them an offer, and said, take it or leave it, especially with some of the things that Jerry Thompson talks about later in his points. And it just doesn't seem like a great way to conduct business, especially with people who you want representing your game at large.
Yeah, I've always felt like Wizards of the Coast has that sort of I don't know, you owe us mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it comes to making Magic cards, I feel like often the fans get upset. People want board wipes in blue, and it's like, look, like players don't know what they're talking about. Like Wizards does, but when it gets to stuff like I don't know that's current and modern, like an esports league, I feel like they really don't know what they're doing, and so they're just like, look, we know what's best, but like they really don't, and I feel like they're afraid to admit it, and so they're just like shoving these things down the pro players' throats and like, look, like you need us, we don't need you, and really that's not like that's why their esports scene has failed so far. It's because of that you need us mentality. Like they need the players just as much as the players need Magic.
Yeah, and just to say this ahead of time, I think me and Eli both pretty much agree that so far Magic Esports has wrong word, but it has been net negative. I think there's some things it's done really well, which we're going to talk about later, and I think there's a lot of things that it hasn't done well, which we will talk about later. What about the second point, Eli?
So the second point's weird. He basically, to summarize, is like they after people started streaming, they pulled people in from all over the world to tell them how to stream, and Gary T thinks that was mostly useless. Um, I just think that's not a very big issue. Sure, sure, it shows that Wizards keeps handling things poorly, which they do. But like I wouldn't leave over a poorly handled how to stream meeting. Like I wouldn't be like wow, this was so bad, I'm done. I feel like that might have been like a filler point.
I think this point doesn't stand as strong as most of the other points, but I do think it is worth noting that like I think he's basically just trying to say that Wizards has always had this issue where like they're really good at making Magic, right? And they're really good at making a great game, but a lot of the other things, not necessarily on the business, but on the relations side, they've been lacking in.
I agree. I wonder whose
sorry.
fault that is, though. I wonder if that's Wizards' fault or I wonder if that's Hasbro's fault. Because I mean, to be honest, like Hasbro's not that great at it either. I think the biggest thing people were talking about was when they announced they're making a Magic MMO, and people are like, nobody plays MMOs anymore. Like, just like how like I guess out of the loop and out of touch do you have to be to announce that? I mean, we all know that MTGO is buggy as hell, and I have sources who say that Magic Arena is not built very modern either, and they're like trying to partner with people, and they're like, oh yeah, we can't do that. And it's like everybody can do that. Why can't you?
Yeah.
Like they're pretty old school in places you do not want to be old school in.
I would not want to be taking advice from the guys who have failed to modernize Dungeons and Dragons, which used to be one of the most lucrative properties on the planet.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah, I mean, Wizards sometimes does things messy, but I will say that this point is a little bit less substance. What's the word? Substantial? Sure,
Yeah.
whatever. Substantial than the others. And also here he says that they give feedback on contractual issues and structural issues, and basically Wizards didn't listen, which is a little bit par for the course, unfortunately. I will say, having played other card games, that Wizards is usually pretty good about listening to the player base when it comes to in-game issues, and they don't actively screw over their player base like a lot of other card games. But I think that using Konami as a baseline for what card games shouldn't be something that leads you to do things well in your card game. Like if you're looking at Konami and saying, well, we're better than them, that's not a great place to be.
The design team and the development team are wonderful, and they listen, and they know when to listen, and they know when not to listen, and they do a very 100%. Good job. But it feels like sometimes that's all they have going for them. Well,
yeah,
which is all they need. Like that's the moneymaker, is the game itself.
Yeah, sure.
I'd much rather, I guess in the grand scheme of things, I'd much rather a bad, esports scene and a great game than a great esports scene and a bad game, because they have those, and they die. So
yeah, and I understand that, but Wizards is putting $10 million into the competitive scene this year.
Yeah, like they're trying. They're trying, but they're trying really poorly. And it's like, look, if you're gonna try, actually try. That is, yeah, exactly. Like this could be it, because they're like, oh, it failed. It's just like, well, it's like Unhinged, because Mark Rosewater likes talking about that. He's like, yeah, like Unhinged failed, and we were like, yeah, but this is why it's failed. We can do it again, and it was it was great when they did it again. So I feel like we might be in for that. They're gonna fail at this, and then we have to wait 20 years before they're like, well, we didn't do it right. It's like, yeah, but we're telling you you're not doing it right now.
Stave was in the top 4 Magic sets that have come out since I started playing in 2014.
It's a pretty good Magic set, and it's only because of the lands.
You're just sick of that praying mantis that people kept throwing on your cards.
Oh my god. His third point is basically coverage. It's basically like the format was sort of stale and the coverage was awful. And wow, is the coverage awful. But that's not even like a Magic Pro League thing. That's like just a Magic thing.
I think you might be misinterpreting this one a little bit. I think he's talking about the original Mythic Invitational and about how coverage was so awesome there. And then they went right back to how they were doing it before, where they just did the fairly basic Pro Tour coverage that they've been doing since before the Mythic Invitationals. Whereas the Mythic Invitational coverage was pretty A1.
I was close enough. Basically, he's complaining about the coverage. Okay?
Yeah.
He's saying coverage was good at one time out of the past 50, and it was great, and they went to bat. Which, It's a good point, but like, obviously it's just implying, look, do it how you did the first Mythic Champion, and there's no issue.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's a easy cut solution.
Yeah, and the thing is, we say it's an easy cut solution, and I'm not saying this is true. This is all speculation. But what if Wizards' plan was to lose money on the first Mythic Championship to get people in? No, I'm serious. Like, they actually may have lost money on, like, a lot of money on this event when it came to hiring the coverage team, all the extra personalities that they got on board, and all that stuff, so that they could try and put the name out. And then they always plan to walk back the coverage to normal.
That makes no sense though, because the coverage. I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to sell entertainment. The coverage is the entertainment. I mean, obviously, swinging in with your Mantis Rider for the last 3 bits of damage isn't as great as hitting a buzzer beater while flying to the side to win Game 7. So you got to sell something, and it's got to be the coverage, and their coverage. If the coverage is bad, people aren't going to watch. You're not selling anything. Or you're selling something. You're selling a bad product.
And that's the thing. I don't think they're selling the coverage. I think their plan was to hook people in with a bunch of we can say their name on this podcast. We're not Wizards affiliated. A bunch of Hearthstone personalities to try and bring them into Magic Arena and get them to watch. And then they hope that the game wouldn't capture people.
You know what? That's actually. I mean that's a legitimate strategy, because that's what Apex did. Is they bought a bunch of Fortnite streamers, had them play Apex, and the game was huge, and then it just died. Like, that's the worry.
Yeah, it's pretty rough, but I think it's not an awful idea, but it does suck really badly seeing coverage walk back, because we've complained about Pro Tour coverage in the past. It used to be way worse, like pre-2015.
Oh, for sure. Really bad. It's been really bad.
Absolute garbage, and it has gotten better. The additions of Maria Bartoli and some actual people who are good at production and stuff like that, right? It's a lot better, but it still very much caters to the spikier Magic player, whereas new Magic players, if they watch your average Mythic Invitational nowadays, if the average Mythic Invitational is going to be like the second one, it's kind of boring.
Yeah.
Personality that they give the players, I don't think they really allow people to shine charisma-wise.
They don't. I mean, they could definitely do. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Magic players aren't the best people to have like a on-court interview with, but they could talk to people. They could have show off the people a little bit more. Most of all, they could just like show highlights. Show stuff in the middle. They have a lot of dead air is one of the biggest complaints, but in a lot of games,
if they highlights in the background, that would be great. Like, half the NBA coverage, because me and you are both basketball fans, right? Half of NBA coverage is the highlights before and after the commercial.
Yeah, but another thing is it's way easier to show a highlight in a traditional sport than it is to show because board state really matters. Or you don't have this sort of setup with any other, honestly, maybe not with any other game even. You don't really have the setup of a board state in Magic, and really explains. Exactly. It's like of course you'll get top deck bolt to win, etc. But for the most part, it's like these long setups and traps to 2-for-1 people. Those are the big plays, but they're not juicy enough to show as a highlight. Yeah. But you can show matches. You can show even match segments if you cut look, it's turn 3. Nobody's played anything yet, but it's turn 3. Just go from here. There's so many possibilities, but they haven't really done anything for who knows what reason.
Yeah, and I think we need to move on to point 4, because we're going to spend a lot of time here.
Oh my, I could spend hours on this. Point 4 was just communication is awful, especially with events.
Magic. Wait, Wizards of the Coast has bad communication.
Whoa.
Eli, stop the presses.
Being said, they did today release the list of people who are going to have spoiler cards for Modern Horizons, which is huge in just a meta sense. Like Wizards telling hey, here are the dates and the people who are spoiling things is already more massive, something they've never done anything close to, and that's great. It is great that they're doing stuff like that.
Wait, season with what to watch out for. I've never seen it before. I've been here for 5 years.
Yeah, I've been here for a long time. They've never, the only thing they ever do for anything like this is just talk about cards that have been leaked. And that's just them being angry. They never talk about this stuff.
Words, like,
But like there's definitely got to be some stuff. Like one of the biggest complaints people have is that they don't know what's going on. You know, people recently were
yeah.
complaining that they have no idea anything about the Magic Online Championship Series. Like they're just like, what is like we came out of nowhere. Like
Mythic Championship qualifiers were literally announced like 3 weeks ago,
I think,
like maybe a month ago, and they started 2 weeks ago, right?
yeah, like it's you can't do this. You gotta plus like doesn't that help yourself? Like don't you have more planning? Like why are they trying
Yeah.
to like rush all this stuff? It makes no sense.
Visibility is good. Planning ahead is good, Wizards. Like
Yeah.
this is stuff I learned in college not to procrastinate. Like not that I would ever not procrastinate, but
Yeah, it's just like honestly, like you could have a little bit more time. You can announce these things. You know, you want to get people excited. That's what's crazy. They're so good at the you know the spoiler season. They're so good at slowly releasing the cards, getting people
Yeah.
excited. But when it comes to doing that for a tournament, nothing. Just
nothing.
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 It makes
Like,
and yeah.
remember Worlds last year? We didn't even like get like we could have figured out the participants on our own if we decided to calculate the pro points ourselves or whatever, right? But the Worlds participants were announced what? A week before Worlds, and the only reason I heard that Worlds was happening was because Jerry T dropped out.
Yeah, could you imagine? Could you imagine a spoiler season for Worlds? Like a Monday it's like here's the Americans. Like Tuesday here's the
32
Japanese.
seed, or the 10th seed in the country tournament.
Exactly. It's just like
That'd be
March
awesome.
Madness makes a huge thing out of it. You could do that with Magic.
A bubble season? Are you kidding me? A bubble season for Magic? That'd be. Ooh, Magic players love spoilers.
Exactly. Magic players love getting the information slowly and making all like you could do that. Like, and it's their own play. It's what they do. They just don't do it for this. And they could.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It is. And I mean, it extends to a lot of things. It extends to like, I guess, all of pro play really.
Yeah.
I guess one of the good things is that they're pretty good at announcing like pro tour season, being like, look, they this year here's all the formats that we'll be playing. So like they can do it to some capacity, but
That's true. GP coverage comes out like months ahead of time. Well, okay, no, it doesn't. Actually, wait, hold up. Let's talk about. Okay, let's not talk about it. But I just want to say real quick, we got the Magic Fest schedule for this year like 2 weeks before the first one.
yeah, I mean, I guess all you got to do is be lucky enough not to be the the first couple handful
Yeah.
of Magic Fests and the ones
Yeah,
near
that being
you.
said, they do know them through like June, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
And they know
it's
the
a couple
cities
months
to the
ahead.
end of the year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
And have good communication. It's just that for like some big stuff they don't. Worlds last year, again, literally only knew about it because I heard somebody wasn't going.
yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I think that they don't really care. Like it's not
Yeah.
that great for them, so they're just like whatever.
Oh, whatever. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to point number 5, and I'll read this one. So this one is basically saying that Magic players who play in the Magic Pro League have not been properly looked at in terms of like their history, whether it be inside or outside of the game, and how they represent the game inside and outside of the game. 2 big cases for it. One of them is alleged and basically rumor fuel, but that player was Magic Pro League, like removed from the Magic Pro League and presumably not going to play for the Magic Pro League again. And the second one is Yu Watanabe, who was caught marking his cards at the most recent Mythic Invitational.
Which so I guess it's a twofold problem. One is like, you got to make sure these people are like, noble. I don't know, like moral. But that's always gonna be hard. Like you always have people trying to trick you into thinking they're great when they're doing who knows what. For all we know, that could be his first time cheating too. Like who knows?
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's fair with the cheating stuff. But I won't lie, the Magic community is tight knit enough to where if you had called some local players we'll call him Player X's, in Player X's vicinity, and asked them, hey, how does Player X behave outside of the game? I feel like people may have told you, well, we don't like him for such and such reason, right?
Yeah, but
Like,
I mean, some people are gonna cover like people have posses, and you call them, and it's like they'll alienate you, which bring once again we probably won't call stuff out, but like it's a very big problem in Magic to like if you don't agree with like the big star player, then you'll
Sure.
get alienated, and that in itself is a big issue. Like
Yeah.
that should not be happening.
And there are some star players who are not in the Magic Pro League because outside of the game, they're considered like one of the people who we can talk about who may not have qualified for the Magic Pro League, but who may not be allowed in if he ever does qualify. Make sure I have this name right real quick. No, I have to make sure I have to make sure that I have this name right, or else I will definitely be crucified. Actually, let's just move on. Let's not talk about it.
Okay, you're probably right.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. What else? Let's move on to 6. Yeah. Oh, real quick. Just so we all know, I think that number 5 could be executed better, even if it's not completely solvable. Like 3 people have been removed, or 2 people have been removed from the Magic Pro League within 6 months of it beginning. That have happened outside of the game, and I think that's an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it could be something where it's like you gotta sign some legally binding documents about cheating, or who knows. But like, I'm sure there's a way that they could solve it better. But it's one of those things where it's hard to comment on because like we don't know how it could be done better.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and go with?
Well, that's not
number
fair. Number 6 is just like number 4. No information about Magic Online Championship Series finals. Nobody's really sure about what the qualifications. Nobody's sure about the prizes. But at the same time, it's like I think, especially with Magic Arena, I think Wizards probably really doesn't care about Magic Online. And at this point, I guess this gets into a whole other discussion about Wizards catering to its fans with like the reserve list and everything. But I think at this point they're just scared to like if Magic Online dies, like people are gonna riot. People are gonna be like, look, I put stuff into this just like I did paper Magic, and you ruined it. Like you devalued it. If you're gonna do what you did to the reserve list, you got to do the same thing to Magic Online, and they don't want that. It's like I feel like they're obligated to continue the Magic Online tournaments, but they don't want to. Like they really don't want to. Which makes sense. Like imagine you're like a random new fan. You're like, wow, Magic Arena looks beautiful. It's also a paper card game, and all of a sudden they're like, here's our archaic old, solitaire version. Yeah, it's like, why would they want that? Why would they want to show that they have that?
It really is. But I mean, it's still a very relevant part of competitive Magic. I know that I prefer to do all my testing on Magic Online, even though the queues are longer, because I feel as if the quality of player may be a little bit better than gold garbage on Magic Arena.
Plus, like, just like Magic Arena is such a hassle to do certain
build decks. It is a hassle to build decks on Magic Arena, and I could just buy them on Magic Online.
And it's I like Modern. What can I say? I'm really not that big on Standard. I love Modern. It's so much nicer for me to just
me and you are both huge fans of Modern. I also play other Eternal formats. Obviously, Commander's not a Magic Arena, right?
And I think Brawl's not on Arena. Shocker.
Was not on Magic Online. Like, let's be 100% honest.
But yeah, so those were Gary T's points. Most of them are good. Like it makes sense. But I think
right. Like at least
if
he's to be believed, these are some not great things happening.
Well, I mean, some of them aren't even just to be believed. Like the first, I think the first 2 are literally like hearsay. But for the most part, it's like, oh, communication is lacking. It's true. Like coverage is bad. It's true.
Bad with WotC? What? Whoa! You're telling me that WotC has bad coverage of esports?
Yeah. So like
the guys who made the revolutionary program Magic Online and updated it as recently as 2010. And coverage in the streaming age. Holy crap.
So the points that are, I guess, verifiable are for sure true and very telling of Magic esports and all that. And the stuff
aren't verifiable. We as a community are a little bit inclined to trust Jerry T because Jerry T has always seemed like a stand-up guy. I very rarely see anybody say anything bad about him. That being said, technically not verified. I think that's worth noting.
Yeah. So that's Gary T. Some of the things we'll revisit just because there's much more to expand on, but for the most part, those are 6 gripes with Magic Esports.
Yeah. So are you ready to talk about what I really came here for, to complain for 40 minutes?
Let's hear it.
Bad everything is right now. And not, yeah, you think I was getting going before? You better watch out. I'm coming.
Yeah, that was more of a neutral stance on Gary T. Now we have what we're upset about in Magic Esports. What we have
Eli knows me. You may think as the listener that was highly biased. Nah, man. you're about to. Ooh, I've got some hot takes ready right out of the oven.
All right, would you like to start?
Yeah, so I think I should probably be the one to introduce most of these, because these are mostly things that I've written down on our super secret hidden script. So first of all, we've got to figure out what the Magic Pro League is. Is the Magic Pro League a professional league for the elite players in Magic the Gathering, for public relations and promotional? Not give opinion on this part, because these next couple sections are going to refer back to this a lot for you to kind of draw your own conclusion. But I think we got to start from the top. The original 32 Magic players in the MPL, basically the Pro Points leaders from last year, who didn't have a problem in their background, right?
Yeah, I mean, essentially.
Yeah. All very strong, at least at first. We'll talk about the new players in a second. All decided on a fairly objective basis. Now we're not sure, because with Duo Standard, which is arguably the least competitive format I've seen in my life, this side of what? Canadian Highlander or something, I don't know. Tiny Leaders, the least competitive format.
Kamigawa, Pauper, Peasant, Tiny Leaders.
That's getting hot.
No, so I mean, one of the big draws is that they're literally limiting themselves to 32, I guess teams. They're players, but they're one-man teams, and then you do Duo Standard. If you're gonna try to market the players, the individual players, that's what you should go for. Don't mix it up so wildly. Yeah. I don't want to go, root for the, Portland Trailblazers and learn that they've teamed up with the Toronto Raptors, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, I don't know what they are now.
You don't want to be the NBA in 2017 and see Oklahoma City sell itself to the Golden State Warriors to create the dynasty.
That's what I'm saying. You go in, if you're gonna market the players as individual players, which is what they're doing, because they're not, another thing is they're not organizations.
I think they want to do it. Yeah,
that's what they should be doing, in my opinion. Then you should keep it that way. It should be matchups. You should be having, if anything, maybe they should be having a regular season and a playoff season.
Storylines, narrative. We have a regular season. Nobody cares about it. It's on YouTube.
Yeah. I want to know, are there rivalries? Do people hate each other? That's what people want. So they need to figure that out.
It's kind of a mess. And Duo Standard. The big issue there's a lot of big issues with Duo Standard, but one of the issues when it comes to deciding if it's professional or if it's promotional is that Duo Standard is incredibly good for being a promotional thing, right? Lots of big swings, lots of coin flipping, lots of gambling, things that excite people and get their hearts racing. To see so many players just lose because they picked the wrong 50-50 on their opening deck, or they just lost a coin flip in the Espremere, or they drew more absorbs before their opponent could, or they got thought erasure card, whatever. It is not good for competitive play.
I
believe outside of Commander have never been used for anything considered competitive play, and even Commander isn't considered a competitive format for the most part by Wizards of the Coast.
People always talk about the sideboarding, all that, and sure, to an extent, people get upset about sideboarding, tilting games, but but for the most part, it's really there's an established format, people like it, it's done well. People haven't asked for it to be changed or anything. It's really weird to see. I guess it's really weird to see get uprooted. Once again, Magic has had this format. People want to see it, and they're just all of a sudden nope. here's this new version. You gotta, you know, in essence, it's not that different from Magic. You're still playing Magic, but it really changes the way pro players play, and that's what we want to see. We want to see them play.
And I understand that it may sound like we're just saying change is bad. I don't want to say change is bad. I think change is pretty good. I think new formats are always pretty cool. I was one of the people who was playing Frontier. I even tried Tiny Leaders and stuff like that. But I think this format was just a little bit worse competitively, because competitive players, as much as they love Magic, of the beating heart, the swings, the big top decks, and like the 50-50 that goes into walking and sitting down with your opponent at your match and figuring out what you're playing against, hating to see it all up front and see every game focused solely on those things rather than things like excellent lines, management of resources and things like that, because I feel like for the most part it came down to people chucking stuff at each other more than any other format I've seen in the past.
People
just try and play your stuff.
People call Magic a chess match, and
Mm-hmm.
it really is. And so trying to add chance into that chess match like really ruins that whole dynamic. And so you end up with, as you said, you end up with people playing Burn because it's like, oh, well, if I'm not going to lose games 2 and 3 to sideboard, of course I'm going to play the best, like Spellslinger deck, which that's an important part of Magic, is hating that stuff out. And so you really need to be able to just be like, look, if everyone is going to go play Burn, I'm going to build the biggest anti-Burn deck ever, and you just sweep. You just win everything because you're like, look, all of you messed up by playing the best deck. It's one of the reasons I love Modern.
That's how Esper really started. Esper is really good against the white deck because the white deck was running stuff over. Burn deck was built to counter Esper. And then the white and the red deck traded a lot. And so you ended up with this 3-deck format with no mid-range play. And mid-range is, I don't want to alienate anybody. I'm a control player myself, but a lot of the times mid-range is one of the decks that requires the most decision-making over the course of a game. Just pound for pound. Once you win with the control deck, you sit there winning for like 20 minutes. Once you win with the burn deck, it's taking you 5 minutes. Mid-range games tend to be really long, really drawn out, and involve a lot of decision-making, and we saw almost none of that at the Pro Tour. Like, 2 entire archetypes were all but eliminated. You only had control and aggro. Combo and mid-range just kind of weren't there.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, though, is, like, combo is just so great. It's so fun to see combo. Combo decks are so, they're fun. They're, honestly, except for, like, these super oppressive, annoying ones, like, they're fun to watch. They really are.
Because so they always, even if they're not new, it's just like someone is breaking Magic. Breaking the game is always fun.
Yeah, it's fun to see like where did this come from, and all of a sudden like all the rules you know and love are just thrown in your face. And I mean, sure, like sometimes it's a little too impressive, but it's fun. It's fun.
I mean, it's anyways, professional or super stream, professional or promotional. I think right now we're leaning a little bit more promotional.
Yeah,
we just added like a Hearthstone player. Not that he's not good at Magic, but we just added a Hearthstone player to the Magic Pro League. But we've been diverse.
I was gonna say it makes sense. Like they're trying to promote it, they're trying to grow it. So like it's a little forgiving that they're doing this, and that's fine. But don't forget,
that you want it to be a promotional product, but I think that you created this to be a professional league. There's plenty of things out there that can be professional products or promotional products for Magic. Magic Fests are basically promotional products for Magic. Standard like sets themselves are promotional. Pre-releases, blah blah blah.
Pre-releases, I think very promotional.
This is the event that needs to be like, hey, this is what you can achieve if you work super super hard at getting good at Magic. This is like the end game, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Shout out to Endgame.
Moving on. Tying this in, it's sort of a problem that a lot of other, I guess, esports don't have. A lot of other esports have the publicity. They have the massive player base that they then turn into a competitive game. And so it's easy for them to go from the publicity to the professional rather than, I guess, starting at the professional and trying to go to the I can't remember what publicity. But yeah,
Promotional,
promotional.
whatever.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Going.
whatever. Like, and that's the thing about Magic. Magic's not flashy. Magic doesn't have cool graphics. It doesn't have pretty colors. It does have five beautiful colors. But they
Well,
don't
arena's flashy. That's one of the things. Arena has those animations and you know the sound effects.
It's cool. Don't get me wrong, but it's not active, right? Like Magic isn't an active game. Magic isn't like a split-second game. You have time.
It's
Things
a
usually
chess
not
match.
really-
People are sitting there thinking for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, but chess matches like in professional chess, like there's no obviously professional chess is going to be promoted, right? But it's promoted for being professional, not promoted for being some type of flashy event. They're not trying to like up these Magic players or check out these poker players that we're bringing into chess. Professional chess is very much like this established set of very, very good players that just, when they play against each other, this is a high stakes professional chess match, right?
Yeah, and so that
Sorry about that. So take it as a metaphor.
that goes back to the Apex thing I was talking about, which is like they're really stuck in that mode of like they're trying to get players to come in to grow for promotional stuff, but like that doesn't make a good esport. That doesn't make a good professional scene, and we're probably stuck with that for a bit.
Apex Legends, the battle royale genre in general, not designed for esports, and maybe that's something Magic didn't consider. Is that I think it's fair to say that Magic wasn't designed for esports, even though Arena was. I think it can work as an entertainment product. Has to follow like chess has a big following, right? Like chess has people who love chess, and I think Magic is closer to chess than it is traditional esports.
No, sorry. No, I know what you mean. It's really, it might be the player versus player part. It might be just hard to market one on one. I as far as I know, a lot of viewers love the team matches. A lot of fans like the one person's playing modern, one person's playing legacy, one person's playing standard. Which is understandable. Like that's a lot of fun to watch. Like things are going on, multiple people are playing, and it's all a team thing. And so like that's maybe it's just maybe it's just that Magic falls short in this thing, but there's definitely potential. Like people are watching it, people are enjoying it.
Yeah. And right here I have a note to compare to League of Legends. And I know they're not the same game, right? But I think organizationally, Wizards could be doing similar things. Like League of Legends has a gigantic player base, and they make a lot of money. Also has a pretty large player base, and they do make a fair amount of money on the game. And when it comes to professional League of Legends has like show matches and stuff like that, like all-star games and so on, like promotional matches. But when it comes to the League of Legends Championship Series, which is the main North American competitive scene, there's no like, hey, we're going to bring in, this streamer or this person. It's no. Your team has figured out that you are the best player for them, and they brought you on for that. Now, if the team's discretion is to bring someone on for entertainment value, so be it. But they are trying to get the cream of the crop, and I think that the Magic Pro League should be the cream of the crop.
Yeah. So maybe that leads into like League is thought about franchising. Overwatch has franchises. Maybe one of the answers is you have these organizations that have multiple players under them, and that's how GPs have worked for a while. People have no issue with it. You could have the Team Fireball team just happens to have 5 players. Maybe they play each other. That's drama. People aren't going to be super upset about it, but that maybe the answer is like Magic organizations.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth later, like some speculation on what they can do in the future in order to improve that kind of competitive scene, and specifically make themselves more marketable as professional but still entertaining. I have a note here about like background checks, which is something that Jerry T talked about. Say this, but there is a Magic player in the Magic Pro League who has been banned before for doing things that are not legal at all. Not in terms of outside of the game, but in game. Like he has been suspended for peaking at a Grand Prix in Grand Prix Rotterdam 2009, which I'm just Googling this right now to double check my facts, suspended for 6 months. And then he was disqualified at the 2014 World Magic Cup, which to me is kind of recent, for intentionally presenting an illegal deck. And that he may not do these things regularly. He may not even like do these things anymore at all. One of the consequences of cheating like this, even though he did serve a suspension and he did do his time, is that maybe he's not allowed access into the highest echelon of sports.
I think that should be a thing. I think that maybe a one-off thing is an issue, but definitely like two separate times, two separate verifiable occasions. Like
5 years apart.
Yeah, like you should not be allowed. Like it should very easily if like at least to serve as a deterrent for people to do that stuff, to be like, look, I can't do it. If I do it, I won't there's no point because I'll never get high enough to play professionally. Like it's got to be a deterrent.
Compare this to two different things. So first of all, you have sports, where if you cheat in sports, you're usually allowed back in.
It's a good point. Usually you get like suspended for like some amount of time, and then you get back. But I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of usually cheating, and that isn't it's tough to say like it's cheating. A lot of the times they get suspended for outside things.
For drug abuse or for
like most of the time, exactly.
Yeah.
And the only cheating that's really done is like PEDs, which I guess they really shouldn't be doing. I think it's one of those things like if you do it twice, you should be banned. Like I would agree with that for sports. But
that's a big thing is that he's done it twice. Patrick Peterson just was caught. Patrick Peterson, cornerback for the Arizona Cardinals in the National Football League. 4-time Pro Bowler or something. Very good cornerback at the top of his game.
And he was caught for PEDs.
Today for using performance-enhancing drugs in sports. And he was suspended for 6 games this season, which is kind of, similar to a 6-month suspension for a Magic player. Maybe not in terms of money because football players are rich and Magic players are poor AF. But he was suspended. But I feel like if he was caught a second time, he shouldn't really be allowed to play football.
And so one of esports are always trying to be like actual sports, but there's some things you really can't. And I think it's one of those things.
Yeah, and I think that's where we segue into the second half of this example is Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Counter-Strike Global Offensive is don't worry, we're not going to talk about most of it. It's real complicated. But on cheating, it's very cut and dry. At any point by Valve, the company that owns the game, they will ban you immediately from competitive play. There has been multiple incidents where in-game a player has been caught cheating and they've been removed from their team. Like they've been literally like they terminate their IP address and they're like, hey, can't play competitive from here anymore, kid, and they just die immediately. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's you got to put your foot down. It's definitely a deterrent. People need to really, people need to have the I guess the fear that they won't make it to make them not cheat.
Yeah, and honestly, him playing at this high level makes it feel as if like, sure, I may not be able to play Magic for a couple months, but in the end, if I am a competitive grinder and I cheat occasionally, I can still make it to the highest echelon of Magic, and I don't think that's a good thing.
But yeah, so like, what would we like this to look like? As I said before, League of Legends has thought about franchising. Overwatch is already franchised. One of the big things when League was discussing franchising was people like the Premier League style. People like thinking that with enough hard work, they can make it to the top. And I think that's very important for esports because
I think that's extremely important for esports. The reason why franchising still works in League of Legends is that if you play super well, even though your team may not make it to the top, you can get picked up by a team. You can get picked up by a team as a team.
And it's really not something that happens in sports. People aren't like, oh, I'll play enough basketball and the Lakers will sign me. It's one of those things where it's like people enjoy watching it even though they don't do it. Whereas for esports, it's like people are players. Like people very, very rarely don't play the game they watch. And so if they're players, they you really should encourage the idea that if they play well enough, they'll make it there too, because that just benefits everyone. It really does. It benefits people, watch more, people play more. It's just good.
From the time I was a senior in high school, I've been playing basketball for 13 years. I've been playing in the competitive travel team circuit known as AAU, to anybody who played basketball out there. And I played for a highly competitive high school up through my junior year. I was 5 feet 10 inches. I was not ever going to go to the league. I knew that. But with esports, the idea is that if you work hard enough, you can make it.
There's no physical limitations. For most esports, there's no physical limitations. It's all just especially with something like Magic, it's just practice. You practice enough, you can be the best.
Magic players who started, almost every Magic player probably started off bad. There's players in League of Legends who started off in like Bronze 5, and
everyone's got to start somewhere.
Streaming or competitive, yeah. And that's the thing for esports, since there's no on who can play, there's no real barrier to entry on just the way you're born. The idea is that if you work hard enough and you stay honest and you stay on the right path, you can make it. And that is a huge marketing thing. And so while League of Legends and other games like that, Overwatch and stuff, if they franchise the MPL, it is a huge problem.
Yeah.
Far they have.
I mean, although they are restricting it to really a handful of people, and we don't even know how to get in. Like we really don't know. Obviously, one of the qualifications isn't don't cheat. You can obviously cheat and still get in. There's no point system anymore. Nobody knows, and I feel like there's got to be a little bit of transparency with that. Sure, I guess being good in the end, for I guess other esports, the qualification is be good, but
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just these are private companies are hiring. It's like the Gladiators are picking up a player, or TSM is picking up a player, not Riot themselves. But in this case, Wizards of the Coast is picking these players. That's it's tough, and I think in a way that's not a good way to handle it. That you're gonna cause issues, or you're gonna blindly see things, and you're not. It's better. You're better off letting people in with a gateway where anybody can do it, or let somebody else do it for you.
That's the thing. League of Legends is more competitive because of the teams that exist within it, right?
Exactly.
Say there were 4 teams and they each had 8 players in the MPL, then there would definitely be active searching for the next big thing, because you want your team to be the best so that you get the best promotion, you get the most matches, and you get the most face time, so on and so forth, right?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
So that leads us to our next kind of subtopic. Jerry T mentioned that none of the MPL players, except maybe Savix, because he's kind of signed to Team Liquid, sort of. The MPL players who originally signed with Wizards of the Coast were, according to Jerry T, were allowed to sign contracts with outside esports organizations.
I think that's just a mistake. Yeah, I think that's a mistake. People should be collective. They should help each other out. They should have, especially if we all know that Wizards isn't really helping them out, especially when it comes to financially. They're definitely not being helped out. But you should have this help.
$1,000 a year contract, which is it's an okay job. It's pretty solid. But most esports pay their players a lot of money, and these outside esports contracts, they don't taint the game.
Yeah.
Rarely do you see esports organizations that are just garbage or actively tank. Shout out New York Knicks. They're trying to win.
Yeah, I mean it's always like that, or they're at least trying to promote their players, and that's really what we want. And if that means people are signing to Channel Fireball or something, then it's honestly probably a good thing.
Yeah, and that's why I don't understand, even if they don't sponsor the play, even if they don't sponsor the play within the Magic Pro League, why not allow a player to be sponsored by Team Liquid or Channel Fireball or something, promote the product in exchange, get a little bit of extra money. There's no reason to be an MPL player versus like I don't know like doing something that pays you more than $75,000 a year. Like, say for some reason Team Liquid offered New Matanami $100,000 a year contract. Why would he play in the Magic Pro League? Like,
Yeah,
there's
I mean,
no
yeah,
real reason. Like, I get competitive spirit and stuff like that, but logically speaking, it's just like these guys are paying me more. Whereas if you allowed them to sign outside contracts as long as they still did the work that they were contracted to you for, players may be more driven. Like, it might drive narrative, it might drive like more investment in the esport itself. Like, still gonna play for you. It won't take players away from you in all likelihood.
yeah. I mean, it really like it'll benefit everyone in the end.
Yeah. And the next thing on the bare minimums thing is like a path to the league, like a qualification criteria to get to the Magic Pro League. We need to understand, rotate out, how many pros are going to be brought in, who's going to ascend to that next level, because I don't think we have pro points really anymore.
Yeah, I mean that people are mostly fine with pro points. Like it was something. Like it was really something.
Yeah, and like these new players, let's not talk about how we feel about them just yet. But these new players, won a GP and won the first Mythic Championship, right? Or yeah, Autumn Burchett won the Mythic Championship, and they the English Nationals, I think, a couple years. And then Savix, the third player, is or something like that at the first Mythic Championship.
I don't
And
know.
like played pretty well, and he streams like he used to stream a lot of Hearthstone. Now he streams a lot of Arena. Like,
Yeah,
but
so
none of these players have like the same path. Like, we don't
no,
know
yeah,
what it is that put them there, right?
exactly. Which I mean, maybe that's why they can't really give qualifications because there's so many. You could top 8 a GP, you could make it through the RPTQ system. Like there's really
Yeah,
a lot of ways to do it.
yeah, and not only a lot of ways, it was well defined.
Yeah.
It was a garbage PPTQ grinder that if I won a PPTQ and I won an RPTQ, I was going to the Pro Tour, right?
Yeah. I mean, and so that's really like it was nice to have that laid out for you.
Yeah. And like maybe there should be a play-in tournament. Imagine that, a play-in tournament for the MPL.
Oh,
Like, you
that'd be
take every
great.
person who's won a GP top 8, you invite everyone who hit like top 100 Mythic that year, and you don't like maybe you don't even have to pay for their flights or anything like that. I understand. It
You
might
like
be a
you
thing.
you just invite them to the opportunity. Top 4 go to the
like,
MC.
a 1,500 person event, top 32 MPL.
Yeah, I think
For a
that'd be
year.
great.
Yeah,
Like maybe rotate people out. Like obviously pro players might not like that, but fans would.
yeah. If you're not going to bring in esports organizations to try and franchise stuff like that and like bring in new people that way, you need to have a different way to do it. And maybe you do it like the Premier League, where you rotate out like the bottom X people. Although for this, it'd probably have to be closer to the bottom half or the bottom 2, visibility and stuff like that. But that'd be a super sick way to do it.
Or even just have a guest. Be like, look, you're gonna have 4 people who make it in, and then they leave, and then you have another 4 people who can make it in, who can qualify. You just you have that like guest 4 at the bottom who can go in and out and in and out.
Do it, please. Like,
And so speaking of people who are coming in, the 2 new people who are joining are as you said, I can't pronounce that name, and
Savik.
Estefan. Savid and
it's pronounced Savix.
Savix and Estefan.
Jessica Estefan.
So I don't know much about them. I know that they certainly did well. Like they certainly performed well enough to get in,
Yeah.
Which makes sense. The other thing,
Day. We'll talk about that in 2 seconds. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I have no gripes. The only issue I have is once again just like was there a wait list? Did they just get in? Like what? How was that determined? But I don't think we'll know.
Yeah,
I don't think we'll be told.
I think it's fair to say that, okay, so let's start with Jessica Stefan. And this is going to be mostly me talking, right? Because you don't have a ton of background on these people.
Yeah.
Say that Jessica Stefan qualified in part because she is a person who is considered a minority within the Magic community. She is a woman, and that's fairly rare among Magic players. I think it's very reasonable to say that there are not a lot of female Magic players. think that it's
paper.
fine.
In paper,
I
apparently there's a lot who play online, and that could have something to do with the fact that you don't have to interact with your opponents,
Dude,
which
I'm not
has
gonna lie, bro. Like, a lot
everyone
of us
says
is
is a
dirty
problem.
and smelly. It's rough. Like,
Like everyone says that the interaction is the problem that drives people away, and it's a problem that's hopefully will be fixed. But for the most part, apparently,
yeah.
they're much more non-males playing online, and that's good. I
Yeah.
think that's great.
And Jessica's big achievement is winning a GP. She's also just a grinder in general. She's won a couple PGQs. She's pretty good at the game. I actually don't have a problem with her making the MPL. I think that even though she may not be as qualified as some of the other people who possibly could have made it, in, like pound for pound, I think it's very important to, especially in a game like Magic, where again there's no physical barrier to entry, to have some type of representation for minority communities.
It's
And
good.
I
It's
think,
important.
yeah, and I think she's probably at least like recent female finishes, like say since I started playing, let's say that in the past like 5-6 years, she's probably got like the second best resume, right, that I can think of.
Yeah, for
behind
sure the
Melissa
best
Toro.
yeah the best eligible resume considering that the Toro is hired.
Jesus, yeah, rip her. She top aided Melissa DeToro is a Magic player who top aided Grand or Pro Tour Gatewatch back in the day when I first started playing, and she's really solid as well. But she currently works for Wizards Play Design team, so her playing at a competitive level would be a conflict of interest, so she can't. I think Jessica Stefan is a really good Magic player. I've seen her play on camera. Seems pretty solid. Don't have an issue with this.
Yeah,
Issue with the
fine.
second player. I think Savix is a good Magic player.
But
Played a reasonable amount of Magic. I don't think he's put in the hours that a lot of these other people have.
so what?
That's the big thing about working hard, right? Is that it requires hours. Savix placed well at the most variance-filled tournament I've ever seen.
Wait, hold on, but okay, look, if
Not that he didn't play well, he played fine. But I think it was the least skillful tournament I've seen, and I think it was the most variance-filled. Savix is was largely a Hearthstone streamer before switching to Magic Arena, where he's performed pretty well. But when you look at say you could have gotten the number one rank on the Mythic ladder, right? Or you could have reached out, isn't in the MPL.
I don't know
but
if number
still
one.
very, very strong.
I don't know if number one on Mythic Ladder should just automatically get you in. It's tough because it really Paper Magic is different from Arena. It should be. I think they're trying to blur that line, which I don't like. But
really, what I'm saying here is that there are people who are more qualified.
Yeah, I can see that. But
And
at the end of the
I
day,
think- Sorry, go ahead.
somebody's always going to find somebody else who they think is more qualified. It's tough.
Sure. Yeah, but there's players who could have made it, who would have been well, they may not be the most qualified, but they're very, very good, right? Let's think of a recent example. Anyone top 8 Pro Tour recently who was told name or has a lot of qualifications and tournament finishes, who just isn't in the Magic Pro League?
Not that I can think of.
Let's just throw a name out there. So John Finkel,
Okay.
they probably asked him to be a part of the Magic Pro League. For some reason, say he didn't make the Magic Pro League. And they wanted him to be in the Magic Pro League. He's evidently more qualified than Speaks, right? Or say, let's look for someone. Ooh, what's a good name? What's a really good who doesn't get enough attention? G Grinder. Say somebody Todd Anderson, right?
Okay.
Say Todd Anderson. No, I'm serious. Say Todd
Jeff
Anderson had a
Hoogland?
bunch. No, go away. No. Say you had somebody who had a bunch of really solid tournament finishes. Magic Pro League and felt a little bit burned, felt a little bit snubbed, right?
No, but I mean, once again, you're always gonna get that.
Sorry, what?
You're always gonna get that. There's always gonna be people who feel like that.
Less. Savix has one major tournament finish.
Yeah, but I mean, once again, this is all from the, it's all from the, trying to drum up publicity. It's all for the, it's not. They're trying to get more people.
Yeah,
and that's one of the big issues I have, right? Is just the fact that like we're only here to drum up publicity.
Yeah,
Like
like
I
we're
think that this needs to be a professional league that promotes itself based on its professionalism. Or it could be a promotional league that's only for like games every week or something, right? But I think trying to do both at the same time is a problem.
yeah, it is. I mean, you're right. It
Decided to
is
be
like
promotional.
they should just do promotional for a while and then switch
Yeah.
to the MPL. But
If they want to be promotional, be promotional. It's fine.
don't
Big
like
three
mask the
always-
professionalism with promotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't mask one with the other. Don't try and pretend. Don't try and do both. Don't try to pretend one is the other. Sadiq's a good Magic player, but I think that there are just other people who put in a lot more time and a lot more effort who have been a lot more snubbed by Wizards of the Coast. A lot more. And even though Savix has put in a lot of work into other games, unfortunately, that doesn't really, in my eyes, qualify you to be a Magic player. Or not a Magic player, but a Magic Pro League member.
Yeah. So what? What'd you say?
Hello? Go ahead. Yeah, like...
I was just gonna segue into point E.
Okay, so point E is diversity. So let's talk about. So first of all, for our viewers, I, Kazi, am an African American man. I am 21 years old on last check. I hope. Eli, why don't you talk about your background a little bit? I don't know if you're a minority or not. Honestly.
I mean, I guess technically I'd be a minority. Technically, I'm Jewish, which is a minority.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you know, white, pasty, young male. So,
Do you say it's a minority?
not where I am. Like where I am,
Ah!
where I am, it doesn't really matter. But you know, it's one of those things where I definitely understand people wanting to be represented. I definitely understand, you know, drawing in as much of an audience as possible. Like nobody is gonna. I mean, nobody you want to watch Magic will stop watching Magic because you bring in more minorities.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that also, me and Eli have both grown up in Southern California, and we're both fairly liberal. I'm from San Diego, which is actually a red county right now, I think, because of the military mostly.
Might be.
You were both raised. I was raised in a minority household. I'm fairly liberal in my beliefs, particularly when it comes to social issues and diversity. And Eli, I think, feels somewhat similarly.
Yes, very similar.
So yeah, I think it's good. I think the Stefan hire, just because Stefan is a really good player, having seen her play, that she's good enough to qualify, and I think that giving her a little bit of boost, there really aren't enough female players in this game
In
at all
esports,
whatsoever.
in all of esports. I mean, imagine like Magic is the biggest esports with women. Like that's already a huge thing. If that brings in more people, I love it. Like at the end of the day, I do love more people playing.
And used to have the name Lauren in his League of Legends summoner name, and duoing with him was god awful. The amount of crap he would get every game for quote unquote being a girl, even though he wasn't female and would explicitly say so.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my female friends won't go on mic for like Overwatch. Like it sucks,
Yeah.
and hopefully
No.
that stuff starts to die down. But that's
Yeah.
why I think it's important that you know people are accurately represented.
Yeah, and second sub point, first of all, consensus from us both. Stefan, solid, opening the Magic League up to female players a little bit more because of their lack of representation. Second thing I want to say, even though this probably isn't going to happen, is that Wizards, hire me. You need more African American players in the community. David Williams, he's too rich. Plays poker too well. Your boy is poor and in college. Put me on. Has two good jobs. You can't afford him. Put me on.
Yeah, there. You know, once again, I'm all for better representation.
I'm straight up not good enough to make the Magic Pro League. If you hire me, that's kind of an issue. You need to be somewhat qualified, right? And as poorest American Magic player, that's not exactly qualified. Like,
Yeah.
as much as I'd love it, put me on.
But yeah, so who knows how much this goes into determining new players.
Yeah.
I'm sure in my opinion, it should factor in, and I'm sure it does.
Bit, yeah. I think that if you see an up and coming female Magic player won a couple tournaments or performed well at a couple GPs or whatever, putting her onto the Magic Pro League isn't a bad thing, even if there are people who are a little bit more qualified, because alienating 50% of the general population from your player base is an issue.
I think the Esteban call is perfect. Like, I think it's great.
I think we've missed on a lot of really good female Magic players just because of the way we treat them.
For sure.
Me and Eli knew a girl whose name we will not use on this podcast because we haven't gotten permission from her, back in Arizona, who we were pretty cool with. She went to college with us. I liked her a lot. She was chilling. I think you liked her too, right, Eli?
Yeah, she was great.
And she was an excellent Magic player. Still is, honestly. But she's gotten way too much crap.
Yeah, it just like that. It sucks, and people are like that, and people need to not be like that.
It's pretty stupid.
And I think seeing, if every other interaction you have is with a woman, you probably wouldn't say the things that these people tend to say. It's one of those things.
And like seeing it sucks. I can only imagine experiencing it. Right?
Yeah,
I've experienced some racism from the Magic community before. I've never experienced it at the volume that she has to deal with sexism.
And so it sucks. But I think it's important to make the game as accessible as possible to everyone. And
yeah, open it up. You need more African American people playing your game. Hire me.
I mean, exposure is important. This is all for exposure. Not only to the Magic community, but Magic to non-players. Like it's exposure in both directions. And so that's why I think it's great.
I'm great for exposure. You can put me in the sun all day. I won't burn. I promise.
Oh, jeez. Yes, you will.
Okay, so let's make a hard segue to the next point. Expansion, and this is less of a gripe and more of something I just want to see addressed. Communication thing, and it's fun to talk about because I always like talking about drafts. I always talking about teams, narratives.
Yeah, I mean that's why I was talking about the like the rivalry. Like you want this drama. You want people to be fighting. You want all that. Like that stuff's really good for business. And so
we may not want like active hostility, right? But like I can't think of too many good rivalries in Magic. There's like John Finkel Kai Buddha from like 2001.
It's because it's also because players didn't really play each other constantly. Like it wasn't really a thing.
And
but
that's fair. Tournaments are so big, it's hard. But in the MPL, you've only got 32 players.
Exactly. They can do it now. They just have to publicize it well enough.
Imagine if you got to do like Nassif versus LSV storylines, and like before they played a match, every time you just show LSV getting top decked.
Yeah, I mean, look, like people gripe about it in sports and like oh, this person's never won on a sunny day when it was only 30. Like I get it, but there's something to be said about
wait, repeat yourself real quick.
People always make fun of this team has never won on a sunny day below 30 degrees while the train was running. Like there are some ridiculous stats like that, but
the Clippers have never beat the Lakers. I just want y'all to take that with you.
Sorry, we were in the playoffs. We couldn't.
Sorry, you guys still have no rings.
Good thing I'm also a Celtics fan, which has more rings than the Lakers. Anyways,
I have enough rings for like my hands, my feet, and one of my feet and two of my toes, fam.
Anyways, having something like Esteban has never beaten this one person, and then they do, that's like people love that, and so being able to manufacture that stuff, I think, is super important.
Yeah, I think there's a couple Brazilian players in the MPL, but like say there were like 2 Brazilian players in the MPL, right? And you could hype up the hometown rivalry or whatever. Like you can create a story around that.
Yeah, I mean,
And
that's why I was saying one of the like, you have a team like a Channel Fireball team, and two of them have to play each other. It's one of those things where it's like oh, like it's drama. Who's
yeah,
the best Channel Fireball player? Like you can figure this stuff out. It's possible to publicize this stuff, and I think it's imperative. I think
yeah.
it'll make or break the MPL.
I know it feels negative and it feels kind of petty, but it's fun. Like when William Jensen and Reed Duke play against each other, and they both play for like the quote unquote Peach Garden Oath, um, and they just like play together a lot, and you can be like, yeah, let's see who's really the best player in the household. Like
Yeah,
let the
yeah,
players talk a little bit loose, let the players be a little bit wild about each other. You don't have to be uncivilized just to have a little bit of fun. You know what I mean? Like it's okay to talk a little trash sometimes. And I think a lot of esports struggle with that, but I think Magic in particular has like just an extreme lack of like bragging,
yeah,
braggadociousness, with a little bit of big personality, some controversy. I'm not saying you need to like add things, but it's okay to have a little bit of rivalry, right?
yeah.
Like when we play against each other, you know what? I'm not even going to use us as an example, Eli. When I play against Jacob in tournament,
Yeah, it's like yeah.
kind of ours,
I
yeah.
even when I play against him, like that, it's fun. It really is fun, and
Yeah,
it changes. It makes the entire match more fun.
and when it was in Arizona, it was fun not just for us, but very importantly for the players around us. Me and Jacob once played a match at Samurai Comics East or whatever, and it wasn't even we weren't even playing for top eight. We were playing a rubber for like extra prize or something, right? Like before top eight, we were like the fifth. We were like the fifth or sixth table, and we sat down across each other, and we both sat down, and we're just like,
I
and so
I legit
yeah.
I legit played I legit played somebody 8 times in a row, like to open the tournament. First match, him, like 8 times in a row, and it just became like oh, let's see who in this time. Like that stuff's fun.
And to talk about how it can appeal to people, when me and Jacob sat down for that match, everybody knew that we played for the quote unquote University of Arizona team. And that we were pretty close friends. And so me and Jacob were like talking trash to each other, right? And not like horrible things, right? But we were talking trash to each other. And like people are actually sitting down and watching us play instead of watching people playing for top eight, like watching them win it, right?
Yeah.
I remember at one point I was just talking trash to Jacob because I was curb stomping him. Ha sucker. And Jacob like sarcastically calls the judge and goes like, Judge, I just want to say that this player is talking trash to me, and the judge who knew both of us was just like, I'm just gonna allow it. And people sat there and just watched us play our useless match for ninth place or whatever. And they had a ball doing it. And then there was like a winning happening 2 tables down that like nobody cared about. It was crazy.
um.
And I think that like a little bit of drama, a little bit of like boring can create some cool stuff. And I really hope Wizards has plan for it.
But yeah. So the last point, which is the opposite of the qualifications for new players, is people leaving. I mean, Gary T did, but for the most part, there's not it's not really like you can't play anymore, too old. Like there's not really that in Magic. Like
it's less of a people leaving and more of an issue with people not leaving.
Yeah, like people could be in here for a decade even. Like people have been around for a while. People could easily be around for a while.
Dude, there's people who have just been around since Magic started, right? John Finkel still plays Pro Tours.
Yeah. Like there's a fear that it could get stale. Like I don't know if I want to watch the same people playing in 10 years.
And it's an issue because like even in other esports, which like maybe don't have the same physical barriers that classic or traditional sports do, like other esports, players tend to get old, players tend to get antiquated, players tend to like lose a little bit of dexterity or lose a little bit of reaction time, and they kind of age out of the game, even if it is a little bit. Actually, honestly, in esports, it's not that slow.
No, but people
but
still do.
Magic
People
doesn't
leave.
I know that when I started playing StarCraft back in like 2012, yeah, let's say 2012. StarCraft in 2012. There are like players at the top of the ladder. Top of the ladder that I can recognize today. I don't play anymore. 5 or 6 people that I remember back from, those days who are still playing StarCraft 2 today. And maybe it's because some other games took those players, but I think it's mostly just because those players don't necessarily cut it at the same level they used to. They may not be able to put in the same amount of time. They may not be able to react as quickly. They may lose actions per minute, right?
Yeah, but you won't.
They just
You won't in Magic. Like it's not.
you won't. My Magic APM is incredibly high. Ask anyone. But it doesn't matter. Yeah. The problem. So we need to figure out a way to get new players in. And again, earlier we were talking about teams. Teams could work. We could have drafts every year for some of the top talent from the GP circuit. Talent, maybe put an age restriction on.
Maybe not. I don't think that would work because people come in at different ages. There's no real like.
Yeah. I'm not saying it would work, but it'd be lit.
But I think teams could work. I do think there are ways to make teams work, and I think that maybe teams are the future. Even though it's a single player game, I think.
Yeah, I get that. Teams are incentivized to look for the next new talent, right?
Exactly.
Because teams want to be at the top of the heap. Maybe if you had like maybe a signing period at the end of every Magic Pro League season or something, where teams could go out and look for the next big thing, or like look at tournament results, right?
Yeah.
And like look for some new player, and they all offer players. Like imagine there being like season for Magic teams. Like imagine there being like you can only sign people to 2-season contracts because there's 2 seasons per year for the MPL or something, whatever.
Yeah.
They don't talk about it because they don't tell us anything, but.
No, but that could work really well because you'll have even if you have even if there's like a MPL and then like a AAA, there's like a sub MPL tier 2, and then you have these teams are fighting for like anybody who top 8s in GP because they want to. That encourages people. That would be great for Magic.
And more importantly, I would finally be able to buy a Magic jersey. I want to. And Eli knows this because we were working at the University of Arizona together on making a Magic team. Insist on having a jersey with my name on it if I'm playing a tournament.
I'll sell you a Logic Knot Magic jersey with your name on it.
I would love a Logic Knot Magic jersey with my name on it.
Give me $200 and I'll get you one.
A Logic Knot jersey with my name on it. You can go to www.website.com.
No, you can't.
Any of those for sale, but if you want one,
if enough people want one, we'll start making them.
If you just want number 00 Baker TLK,
disgusting.
Easy. Not that hard. It's a great idea.
But yeah, so
merchandising and just publicity and being able to promote individual players and just getting more clout from esports, whatever. Just being able to emphasize people for playing on a team is big money for a lot of esports.
Yeah, and
you can go out and buy Cloud9 jerseys with players' names on them, and people walk around in them.
Yeah.
Not embarrassed at all.
Yeah. I think there's some stuff that can be fixed. I think teams are the future. Hopefully we'll get more information. It's a very young league. They're still figuring stuff out. We're still figuring stuff out. So given a little bit of time, who knows what it'll be like. But I'm happy that there's a focus on Magic esports. It's not nothing. It's something. And hopefully they can figure it out. Maybe with our help, maybe without our help, and
hire me.
And so
I watched actual sports for 16 years. The stuff is in my brain.
But yeah, those are our thoughts on the Magic Player League and the Magic esports scene.
Yeah.
Any closing things?
Again, Wizards, hire me. Let's see. This is actually the inaugural episode for our podcast. We were originally just going to do a huge introductory episode, but I think we're going to save it for the next one. This came up this week, and they're kind of important.
Yeah, we had a lot we wanted to talk about. Obviously, I don't think subsequent podcasts maybe won't be as long. Probably be more freeform, but we wanted to get this out.
Yeah, and tune in next time. Hashtag Grixisgod. I think next time we're going to be discussing ourselves a little bit more and where, we started playing Magic, all that kind of stuff, introducing TLK. And we're probably going to be also discussing some issues in my community with the competitive Magic scene.
So yeah.
And that's me signing off. Eli?
All I want to say is, I've been Eli Rosenthal. That has been Kazi Baker, and thank you for joining us for the Logic Knot podcast. Goodbye.